Hello and welcome back, everyone. Again, I'm Hayla Alawi, Atmosphere Press's Book Publicity and Events Manager. Thank you so much for joining us for this next talk. In this talk, we're going to be learning about the importance of cover design with our guest, Matt Fielder. Matt is one of Atmosphere's cover designers, so he'll be walking you through the process of how we design book covers. At any time, please do use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to send in your questions for Matt. You can also check out the Answered tab to see answers to questions that have already been posed, or if we decide to answer a question live, we'll make a note in that Answered tab as well. This talk is brought to you by NetGalley, a site that helps publishers and authors promote digital review copies and audiobooks, both pre and post publication, to book advocates and industry professionals. Publishers make their books available to the NetGalley community, which is made up of approximately 660,000 active members, including reviewers, bloggers, librarians, booksellers, educators, journalists, media professionals, and others who work in the book trade. They use NetGalley to discover new books, request titles, and make buying decisions, as well as to leave feedback on the books they have accessed. Plus, with Booktrovert, which is powered by NetGalley, publishers can advertise directly to consumers with digital book giveaways and other special promotions. Atmosphere Press lists 10 titles on NetGalley each month, so we can testify to their transparency and the usefulness for books. We are especially proud to partner with them for the summit. And because of that partnership, just for attendees of this talk, we're running an exclusive giveaway for a free 6-month NetGalley listing for a single title. This book has to be, or this title has to be a book that is about to be published or has already been published. And if that describes your book, just put your book title in the chat and we will announce the winner at the end of this talk. With that, I am thrilled to introduce our guest speaker. Although Matt Fielder studied film in college rather than art, he never fully abandoned his artistic pursuits. Several years ago, he produced and provided artwork for the Star Wars documentary, The Prequels Strike Back, The Fan's Journey, and is now the assistant teacher at the Texas Hill Country Atelier in Caryville, Texas. Besides his design work for Atmosphere, he's a fine artist and an avid pastelist. His science fiction artwork has made him a finalist in the L. Ron Hubbard Illustrators of the Future contest, and his cover art for Terry Brown's An Enemy Like Me from Atmosphere Press won silver in the Wishing Shelf Best Cover Awards in 2023. Matt currently lives in the Texas Hill Country, smack dab between Comfort and Caryville. If he's not painting or designing book covers, he's probably working in his garden, feeding horses, or hanging out with his 4 cats. But sometimes it's nice to go in from the heat and read a book, watch a movie, or play a good video game. Matt, the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, Hayla did a great job of introducing me. That's just about all there is to say. My presentation is, I've called it the art and mindset of cover design. It's probably should have been called the mindset and process of cover design, but you'll get the gist. So moving into it, got this about page again. You've pretty much heard everything there is, but got some examples of some of my art, of my personal art, and my website and my Instagram and my ArtStation. If anyone cares to look at any of my work for Atmosphere or any of my personal work, my atelier figurative work, that's all pretty much going to be on my Instagram account. That's where I post most regularly. So I guess moving on into it. So what is a book cover? Well, it's that thing you see that makes you interested in picking up the book, basically. It's probably, I'm biased, but I think it's probably one of the most important parts of the whole publication process, because it is literally the face of the book, of your book that is presented to the world. It's what makes your book the product that people want to grab, what makes them curious. And part of the job for me is obviously I have to understand what the book is about. Like, so what is the story? What's the narrative? But then it's also important, I think, to understand what are some of the big themes. What's the main thesis behind the narrative of the book, and also what's the mood? And that's kind of for me, mood has a lot to do with genre. And I think the big utility of genre is categorization. I mean, because many times, you'll get a book that doesn't fall neatly within one genre or another. And that can be quite a challenge to find that sweet spot of depicting it in such a way that that people want to pick it up. But that quality of grabbing the reader is like the most important thing. You have to make a design that is, intriguing, that is enticing, that's, kind of tasty. And not that, I'm always that I always knock it out of the park on the first try. Sometimes it takes a few rounds of revision. And I'll get to that part of the process as well in this presentation. But these aspects, the hinting at the narrative, distilling the themes, capturing the mood, those things all have to be like in agreement with one another. And maybe we can't get all of them in agreement, but trying to get most of them. I mean, at least two of them. Not just one, but at least two of them, and hopefully all three, and potentially even more aspects of the novel in agreement and kind of condensed down into a nice design. And yeah, on the screen here on the top row, I've got four examples of some of my favorite book covers, and some of my favorite books as well. That they just were kind of the first ones that came to my mind, probably because they're some of my favorite books. And they have pretty incredible designs on them as well. The book cover for Carrying Comfort has always kind of been pressed into my subconscious. And I think that's kind of the intended effect of the cover design there is, if you know anything about the story, it's kind of a horror. It's a fantastic book. And I'm excited for the day where we maybe get to see a limited series adaptation of it or something. But if you know the book, then you'll know how appropriate that cover image is for setting the tone of the book, and getting you it's getting you like kind of primed for the story that's inside it. The same with Dune. I mean, that's one of my favorite. That's probably, if you were to ask me what is my favorite novel, it's got to be Dune. I've got other novels that I absolutely love, but that one hit me when I was 14, 15 years old, and it has stuck with me my entire life. And the latest cover design, I think for the 30, maybe the 40th anniversary, I can't remember. No, probably older than that, like 50th anniversary. The book came out in 65, but that cover image there that's on the slide, it's got the like almost mythic or quasi-religious iconography, the big circle icon around the silhouette of Paul, and it really captures the oh gosh, the big mythic, but also kind of dark. The Paul being in shadow, him being a silhouette. It's really appropriate for the story. But and then below I've got four designs that I love that I made that came to mind. And there were a few more of mine on the title slide as well. But that is, to me, the purpose of a book cover is trying to get that potential reader to pick it up off the shelf and dive in, and in a visual way. So how does it begin with atmosphere? What does this process even look like at the start? Well, it begins obviously with the author, with their book, and with a conversation with our awesome art director, Ronaldo, Ronaldo Alves. If I'm sorry, Ronaldo, if I'm pronouncing your last name incorrectly. But he's just an awesome guy, and there's no one better suited for that job. He's an incredible designer as well, and he makes an incredible intermediary between us, the designers, and the author. And it starts with him having a conversation with the author, sending a questionnaire. There's a questionnaire that, it asks questions of the author, like, if, first off, obviously, give a description of the book. What is it even about? What nouns or words, just in general, describe the book? What is the overall tone or mood? Going back to that first slide, mood is, I think, pretty important, at least for me. What do you want me to feel? When I look at your book cover, and all of those questions are there. Even if you have a design in mind, plenty of authors come into the process with a very distinct and vivid idea of what they want on their book cover, and sometimes it's spot on. It's like, yeah, I couldn't see your book cover being really anything else besides what you've presented. And sometimes it's like, well, I can maybe do that, or it might be a little bit too specific, or just kind of tough to do. Maybe there's a medium ground. That kind of gets into the next part of the process on the next slide. And so after that, then I kind of begin the ideation and just the whole work. The meat and bones of this is me sitting down, and if I had an idea that came to me that was really strong and I just couldn't shake it, that's probably going to be the very first draft that I make. And sometimes that happens. In fact, that happens quite a lot. I'll read a description, I'll read that questionnaire, and immediately I get ideas. And there's three cover drafts for the same book that I've got on this slide. And that was one that, upon reading the description, I started getting, I wouldn't say very specific ideas, but very kind of vague general ideas about what the overall concept of the cover could be, just given what the story is about. And that first one there is my favorite of the drafts. If it's okay to say which one's my favorite, I always walk away with one that's my favorite. And I think that was probably the first one that I made. And some of this ideation phase is contingent upon certain limitations. We are given 2 weeks to a 2 week window of time to get those drafts made, which is plenty of time, but you hear that clock ticking the whole time. And also, I although I have an education in classical realism, and that's a continuing education as well. I'm often not able to actually illustrate a book cover, or if I am, it's because it makes a lot of sense for the genre of the book that it would be an illustrated book cover, because it's not always the case that a painting is the best fit. But all of these factors, even just the images that I'm able to find, are the limitations that help, aid my creativity. I'm a big believer in limitation breeding creativity. And then once I've got the drafts, which is 4 to 5 drafts, is usually what I try to send out. If I get even more ideas, that's an awesome day for me. If I can send you like maybe 6 or 7, and then I upload them in a PDF that the author can view, and the ball begins rolling. The next process is pretty self-explanatory. It's just the edits, the revisions, because it's very, I've done probably about 350 book covers for Atmosphere since I started back in 2020. And it happens that I do a draft in that initial set of drafts that get sent out, and the author's like, wow, that's the one, you did it. And no notes, just it's approved. And that's always a great feeling. But more often than not, I mean, the commonplace thing is that, there's a draft that is a close fit, but perhaps not exactly there yet. Maybe a change of font, or I didn't get the character looking just right. It can be little things, and it can be a short process, or it can be a little bit protracted. It can take a while. It can take a lot of back and forth and conversation to figure out what needs to happen to really get that book cover exactly the way that it needs to be, to make the author happy. And I mean, that's kind of like my drug in a way, is whenever I get an email, that not only just says approved, but like, oh my God, it's exactly what I wanted, or it made my day. And I've gotten a few emails like that. Obviously, as an artist, that just that makes your day in return. That's really what I'm after, is to make the author happy. Um, and sometimes I completely get it wrong. I misunderstand the assignment. And I'd say that's fairly rare, I think. Yeah, but it does happen. Sometimes I'm like, I don't really know what the book is wanting to be, and sometimes that means another round of drafts, like new drafts get made. And that's okay. That's just part of the process of getting the author something that they love, and that they want to present to the world. That's the work. That's the job. And here I've got some examples. This is for a book called Mirror.exe, if I'm pronouncing the title correctly. And it's kind of a cyberpunk book, if you can't tell. I was very much in Blade Runner 2049 mode whenever I made this, and this is just an example of the author's notes, all the different things that they wanted edited, and this is the final version of the book cover. So I was close. I was very close. The author really loved what I had, just with a few tweaks, and we arrived at the product. And now this is the end. The author said, "Yay, it's awesome, approved. You made my day. This is wonderful." And now I have to build out the full book cover, the front, the spine, and the back. And that's all just to get it prepared for I guess, the final most of the final stage, which is to make the template. And that's also part of my job, is that all of the covers that come through from the other designers, I make the upload templates for those, as well. So for Kindle and for Ingram Spark. And a big consideration too, and the reason why I have these covers, and I'll show a few more as well, is sometimes a book comes through that is the start of a series, or a saga, or a trilogy, or just a duology, and it's a consideration of mine, having grown up with the 7 Harry Potter books on my bookshelf at home, and seeing how cohesive but distinct each one in the series was. They were almost color coded, you know. And you just knew, like, each one of those is Harry Potter, and each, I can pick out the Prisoner of Azkaban separate from, the Order of the Phoenix or the Goblet of Fire, whatever it is. And that's a consideration for me as well. If your book is the first in a trilogy or a series, what is going to be my plan moving forward when the next book comes along? How am I going to, present a design that is going to be the first of many designs like it? Variation upon a theme is kind of the key there. And so these are two covers. So far, there's just 2 books in this series. I'm not sure if there will be more. I hope so, because I really enjoyed making these. Um, and there's also these here, from Samantha Davenport, and her White Dragon series, and I really leaned heavy into the color coding on this one, and I'm really proud of these. And you'll see the spine, and when it's a series, is really important, because you got each one of them on a bookshelf, and it's the spine that's facing out. And when you've got multiple in a series, and they're all cohesive, and they each have their own distinctive color or quality, it looks really cool to have multiple books of a series on your shelf. And so that's a really big consideration. And then the last one here I've got is Rachel Greco's duology here. And I didn't know going into this one actually that there would be a second book, but found a way to work with the themes that the author was giving me and what was really important with that second book and how to echo what I did with the first book and now going into the second book. If the first one feels like maybe Mordor, Shadow and Flame, the second one feels like I don't know, maybe like the light coming out of Gandalf's staff. Like just the kind of ethereal, kind of light. Yeah, I think that that kind of covers everything that I had planned to talk about for book cover design. It's a job I love, and I've always kind of dreamed of doing this. So thank you so much for listening to me ramble on about making pretty book covers.
Well, thank you very much for doing that rambling, Matt. Like I mentioned in the opening remarks, this is very much a topic I've heard lots of interest from authors and writers about hearing. So this was fantastic to get all these insights. And at this point, we do have time for our audience Q&A. So if anyone in the audience has a question for Matt, go ahead and type that in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we're going to do our best to get to as many as we can. This first question comes from earlier in your presentation when you were showcasing those beautiful book covers. I noticed a lot of books on display have author names listed at the top of the cover. Is that
Mm,
better than in the middle or at the bottom?
okay, well, I would say that I've gotten requests sometimes for the name to be specifically at the bottom. I don't know that I personally have a preference. What I've noticed a lot is like if you pick up a Stephen King hardcover, um, his name is the whole cover basically, and then it's just the title in a smaller font down at the bottom. Because I mean, my God, I mean, he's Stephen King, he's the king, right? I mean, we everyone in the world knows his name, they know his books. You go into a Barnes and Noble or anywhere, and you see that name. That's really what you're going for. And oh my God, to achieve that status, forget about it. That's awesome. But that's for him and for his publishers. That's got to be a consideration. Is like people are buying Stephen King. So I sometimes like an author name at the top. But then again, sometimes like if it's a series of books, maybe I like to put the name of the series at the top in kind of a banner, and then the author name at the bottom. I've heard some authors say that, well, this is my first book. I'm not a big name author yet. So maybe I get like bottom billing essentially, like the name goes at the bottom. It's the last thing that's read. I personally, again, I don't have one opinion about it. I think it depends on really the what the author wants. And Yeah, because I will say I don't know that I will ever put an author name just smack in the middle of the book. That's typically for me where the title goes. So I can at least eliminate that option. Like I will say I don't think it should go in the middle of the book cover. So hopefully that answered that question.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question for you. Are there any websites or software that can help you design a cover for your book, or what are your favorite design software to use?
Huh. Um, I mean, I love Photoshop. I mean, that's kind of what I've trained myself on. But I kind of bounce around too. I mean, I'll say I use Photoshop probably 92% of the time. But I sometimes have a design in mind that is not photographic, and or painted. I would paint in Photoshop as well. Sometimes I have a design in mind that's a very graphic, like hard-edged vector graphic type of imagery, and I would use Illustrator to create that. I would then bring it into Photoshop to build the cover, but I would create that art in Illustrator. I have even on occasion been bold enough to go into Google SketchUp and create some like spaceship designs because I am never satisfied with stock spaceships. Ever, never. They look cheesy and bad to me. So I have on occasion gone into Google SketchUp and made some pretty simple spaceship designs. There's a cover, I think it's called the book is called The Courage Within. It features a couple of my original just spaceship designs off in the background behind the character. So I sometimes implement 3D into a book cover if I've got a really strong idea that maybe I need to do that. But as far as like other software, I don't necessarily know that I have any recommendations with that. I have been dabbling with Adobe's generative AI to maybe generate certain stock aspects if it's something I'm having trouble finding online and it's really specific. But I also try not to lean, I don't know, too heavy on that. But yeah, as far as other software, I'm not certain. I guess I've listed everything that I feel masterful with already. So
Well, lots to get into there already, so that's great. Another question, as a designer, do you prefer the author to have a ton of input from the very beginning or let you lead the first draft based on your interpretation and then collaborate?
um I'm always I always prefer more information. I say that having had experiences where what I receive is like a 26-page PDF about the novel. And I had an experience like that. It was this huge PDF all about the book. And it turned out to be a little bit overkill of information, way more than what I needed. But I will say, I guess I would rather receive that than, to get the questionnaire from Ronaldo and all it says is like, it's a sci-fi book in the future and very very minimal stuff, and it's like, okay, well, I guess I'll open up the manuscript and peruse it myself and make my own judgments. So I'd much rather have like an overkill of information, definitely, than too little. And i I do sometimes, I mean, I would say most of the time I try to accommodate, like if the author has a very specific vision for their cover, I'll do everything I can to try to make that happen. But then I will also present my ideas as well. And I'm not saying that, sometimes I'll present my ideas because I think like, ooh, I hope they really like it because I think this is a better idea. And sometimes it's just, pure courtesy. It's like, well, they wanted this, I can do it, but I also want to give other options because maybe it's something they haven't considered before, and maybe it's something that I think really would be a good idea. So I mean, as much input and as much conversation, it's never, I am never one to just think like, oh, I'm the artiste and I know everything and I know exactly what your book needs and no input from you and you've offended me. It's never been, that's never been my approach. So I always value any input, any constructive input that the author can give, and I'll try to reciprocate that.
I think that's probably a relief for many writers to hear that it's such a
Mhm.
collaborative process.
It is.
What's your opinion on incorporating quotes or endorsements or blurbs on the cover, whether that's on the front or the back?
Oh, that is actually part of my other part of the job, which is the template creation, the template setup part of the job. So um, plenty of atmosphere authors get blurbs that they will request certain ones be put on. Sometimes I get requests that they be put on the back cover, and sometimes I get requests they be put on the front. More often than not, people want it on the back cover because you don't want the front cover to be kind of damaged by clutter, by word clutter. You want the kind of imagery and typography, the front cover to speak for itself. What I will say is that there is limited word count and limited space on any cover, and sometimes. I have to truncate a blurb, a praise blurb, to really get into just the what is this person's opinion? What is this blurb really saying? And my one opinion about praise blurbs is if it's on the front cover, and sometimes it looks nice. Sometimes it looks very nice to have a praise blurb on the front cover. But if a praise blurb is to feature on the front cover, my opinion is that it should be um, very concise, not multiple lines, not a paragraph, but a very quick, concise blurb. I always think about one of my favorite sci-fi novels is Spin by Robert Charles Wilson. It's a great book. If anyone hasn't read it, I love it. But on the front cover, there's a blurb by Stephen King, and it says Robert Charles Wilson is one hell of a writer. And that's it. I bet there was more to the blurb, but that's what they chose, and they put it there, and it's great. It doesn't detract from the cover art at all. So I guess that's all I got to say about blurbs.
Yeah, definitely good stuff to hear. I think it really just kind of depends on the project, right? So that's what
Hmm.
it's sometimes boils down to.
Yeah.
This next question, do you accept a cover with original artwork by the author? Would anything need to be changed?
Oh, sure. That's happened plenty of times. An author will come in and they will already have art that they've maybe there's a friend or family member that is an artist that they've gotten, artwork from, or someone that they contracted to already do the artwork, and then they come in with that. And at that point, really the only thing would be, if anything is to change, it would probably be typography. It would be the design aspect. Um, I don't know if anyone noticed, but I think it was the Dune book cover on that second slide. There's two. I gave two lines of credit. One was the designer. One was the illustrator. So Matthew Griffin, I think, was the illustrator. So the artwork on the cover was him, but the designer did the typesetting, chose that font and everything like that. So if someone comes in with some artwork already, maybe it does have type. Hopefully if that's the case, it's a layered Photoshop file, and that way we at least can, adjust it or work with it, and it's not just like baked into a JPEG. But if it is just an image, we can absolutely use it, and we'll put our own type on there. And then sometimes they'll, I've gotten instances of authors provide artwork, but they still want to see what we can do. And that's always nice too. And maybe more often than not in those scenarios, they still go with their artwork. But I think it's happened at least once before where someone's presented something that they came into the process with, and then I present an option and they think, oh, that's actually, I kind of like that one more. So yeah, yeah, I mean, you can come in with your own art and we can work with it.
Fantastic. Again, all about the collaboration, it seems.
Yeah, yeah.
Another question here. What are some common, oh, excuse me, I skipped a question. How do you choose fonts, color combinations, and other design elements based on the book's genre?
Mm. Um, that has for me so much to do with just intuition, and exploration. There's some fonts that are just wrong for a project, and some fonts that are just ugly. You'll never get Comic Sans or Papyrus for me. But yeah, it in terms of genre, I mean, and sometimes I do try to mix it up. I don't want to say that sans serif fonts never ever belong in a period piece cover, or a fantasy. Sometimes it could look really sleek and nice, and it can be unexpected, something that kind of breaks the conventions. And I do like to at least present options like that sometimes, where it's maybe not what you would expect. But yeah, it for me, for in terms of my process, it comes down to a lot of just gut feeling, intuition. Maybe I already have something in mind, because we're artists. We kind of are what we eat in a way, the books that I've read in my life, the movies that I've watched, the art that I've consumed. It's all informing my decisions in a moment with a cover design. So yeah, it kind of just comes down to intuition. I don't know that there's any super rational beat for beat process for that.
Totally. Again, there can be some conventions, but that's not to say you can't break out of those conventions and still have a
Absolutely,
super successful book.
absolutely.
So we've got just time for one more question.
Okay.
So for the last question, Matt, what are some common requests you get from authors that you know from experiences or know from experience, maybe just don't work super well?
Mm. Um, I sometimes get requests to depict a character from the book, probably the main character or a cast of characters, let's say. Um, and there's some problems with something like that. For me, I like to go into a novel with my own um with kind of a blank slate, developing my own interpretation or imagining of what these characters look like. I often don't like going into a novel with just every character depicted in hyper realistic detail, and because now that's the person that exists in my mind. And I'm not saying that's a necessarily a bad thing, as it may be the person I would have imagined anyway or close enough. But the other aspect of that to me can be kind of a pitfall is it starts to look like a movie poster and not a book cover. This is still the realm of literature. This is still the realm of words. And so I think that obviously it's a book cover. You need art, you need design, you need something that's going to grab the reader. But it maybe shouldn't feel quite like a movie poster. Now, how have I had to go ahead and do that anyway? Sometimes, yes. But like the Dune cover, it features Paul, but he's in silhouette, he's in shadow. It's foreshadowing the kind of anti-hero journey that he goes on, and it keeps him mysterious. You just get a silhouette. You don't get Timothy Chalamet on the cover, unless you're getting the movie tie-in book, in which case, well, then you do. But yeah, that I think that kind of request probably is a little too specific, and just for my own personal taste, kind of starts to veer outside of this realm that we exist in, which is books, it's literature, not movie posters. So
All right. Well, thank you so much for answering all these questions, Matt. I know it was kind of a rapid fire at times.
that's
That
okay.
is all the questions that we have time for in this talk. So, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your advice with us and all the attendees. Thank you to the attendees as well for being here in the audience and sharing or posing these thoughtful questions, I should say. The next talk will be a look inside the book cover. Oh, excuse me. This is the book cover design process. The next talk will be a look inside the website and audiobook development process. That's going to be with our digital director, Evan Courtwright. To rejoin the Zoom webinar for Evan's talk, just click the same link you clicked to join the Zoom for this talk. While you're in the digital waiting room, you can enjoy excerpts from the audiobook A White Duck in a Black Pond by Dane Wyckoff. Thank you again also to this talk's sponsor, NetGalley. Get your book in front of 660,000 active members, including reviewers, bloggers, librarians, booksellers, educators, journalists, media professionals, and others who work in the book trade by using NetGalley. Make sure to see that link in the chat. I just added it, or actually, let me add it one more time for everyone, just so it's super easy to access. And I'm happy to announce this talk's giveaway winner. The winner of a free 6-month NetGalley listing is, oh, let me see here. Yes, the winner is Catherine Kimbrell with the book Robot in Red Blood Bites. Please look out for an email from Atmosphere this week about arranging the delivery of your prize. In the meantime, we look forward to seeing all of you in the next talk.